But first, let's get to tonight's top story. The latest in the Mar-a-Lago saga. We now know the nation's top intelligence official will be scouring the documents for possible risks to our national security. And this as the former president continues to take shots at top Republican leaders, infighting in the party at an all-time high. New polling out today, though, shows this. Despite the ongoing scandal, the majority of Republicans want Trump to be their nominee in 2024, and he, quote, deserves re-election. NewsNation correspondent Joe Khalil has been tracking this story for us from the very beginning. He joins us live tonight from our nation's capital. Joe?
Good evening, Natasha. So, look, NewsNation was able to obtain this letter confirming that the top intelligence official in the country is now investigating those Mar-a-Lago records, now assessing how serious the threat to national security would be if those records that were housed at Mar-a-Lago and not a secure government facility for more than a year got into the wrong hands. So we're talking about the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines. She said in this letter that her threat assessment, it's going to be totally separate from the FBI's criminal investigation. And let's take a look at that letter. She writes here, quote, the ODNI, her office, will also lead an intelligence community assessment of the potential risk to national security. That is the focus there. So you may be asking yourself at home, look, why is this important? Well, the answer is the public has not yet been made aware of who had access to those documents, including those marked top secret, and if people who didn't have the proper authority to see them actually had access to them. What sort of risk does that pose to American national security? These are questions that the general public may never actually get answers for, but we do at least now know that the intelligence community is taking those questions on. Let's get a quick reminder here of what we're talking about. The FBI took 11 different sets of classified documents, including some marked at the highest possible level of top secret, from Mar-a-Lago during that raid earlier this month. And we just learned Friday, according to that newly released affidavit, that months before the raid, in January of this year, the Trump team sent the National Archives 15 more boxes of documents, which included 67 marked confidential, 92 documents marked secret, and 25 that were marked top secret. Now, the DNI, Avril Haines' letter that we obtained was addressed to two Congress members specifically, Adam Schiff and Carolyn Maloney. Those are the top members of Congress on the Intelligence and Oversight Committees. They actually made a request for this assessment to be done. So both Schiff and Maloney responded with a joint statement. We've also obtained that. And in that statement, they say here in part, we are pleased that in response to our inquiry, Director Haines has confirmed the intelligence community and the Department of Justice are assessing the damage caused by the improper storage of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. They go on to say the DOJ affidavit, partially unsealed Friday, affirms our grave concern that among the documents stored at Mar-a-Lago were those that could endanger human sources. Natasha.
Well, and Joe, we also learned late this week that a judge is likely to approve President Trump's request for a special master to oversee these documents. What exactly does that mean, and what do we know about that?
Yeah, so that came from former President Trump's lawyers. They made that request because they claim that some of the documents the FBI and the DOJ took from Mar-a-Lago actually fall under attorney-client privilege, meaning they should remain private between former President Trump and his attorneys. That's at least their claim. So they have now asked the Department of Justice and the FBI to stop going through those records, and they're asking a court now to appoint a special master, as it's called. Essentially, it's a neutral party to oversee that process, take it out of the hands of the Department of Justice. If the former president made clear he doesn't trust the FBI or the DOJ to handle that process in a fair way, a judge has indicated that she actually is inclined to grant their request for a special master. We don't know yet if that's going to happen, but Natasha, it certainly appears that way at this point, that it's heading in that direction.
All right, Joe Khalil, live for us in Washington. Thank you. And we are joined now by Niall Stanage, White House columnist at The Hill. Niall, thanks so much for being here. Great to see you again.
Good to see you, Natasha.
So that new polling out today shows the majority of Republicans want Trump to be their nominee in 2024. More than 80% think he can win. What do you make of these numbers, and how has this Mar-a-Lago saga affected support for Trump?
In terms of the Republican support for Trump, I'm not honestly that surprised. The former president has always had a very firm hold on his base, and among Republican voters, he remains very popular. To your point about this raid, I think you could argue that that has made him maybe more popular is the wrong word, but has further intensified that level of support among supporters who feel that he's been victimized here. Now, I would make a very clear distinction between those Republican voters and the population at large, with whom Mr. Trump has firstly always been fairly unpopular, and secondly, the general public has, in polling that I have seen, been fairly supportive of this raid and the need to look into this matter. So again, it's that dichotomy between the Trump base and the rest of the electorate.
And as we just heard from Joe Khalil, in terms of the saga, intelligence officials combing through the dozens of documents found during the raid at Trump's Florida estate, what kinds of things are they specifically looking for?
Well, obviously, it's basically regarding the classification levels of the documents. That's one key element in all of this. But the second thing that we can surmise is that they are looking for things that are in some way damaging to U.S. national security. That could be the case, that could be a separate issue from the actual classification level. We know that the Trump legal team, or his allies at least, are arguing that he declassified documents almost as a matter of course. But the Department of Justice has noted that at least some of the statutes that are possibly being infringed here don't rely upon classification status. The Espionage Act, the most dramatic sounding of those charges, is regarding mishandling information that could be used to the injury of the United States. It doesn't mention classification because the law itself predates the modern classification system. That's something that clearly the FBI is going to be looking at as it makes its way through these documents.
And if the documents are found to contain highly classified or top secret information, how does that impact any possible charges against Mr. Trump?
Well, for a start, it's worth, I think, being clear that we don't know for an absolute fact that Mr. Trump is the one being targeted or facing potential charges here. Other people who have had access to these documents, whether at Mar-a-Lago or elsewhere, could face charges. But at the moment, all we know is that it's in the investigative stage, and obviously this affidavit that is now out, albeit in redacted form, shows that the Department of Justice believed there was probable cause to believe a crime had been committed. I'd also just briefly, Natasha, mention in that affidavit, we saw that they believed they had probable cause to believe that there had been obstruction. That was one of the most intriguing elements in the affidavit because the reasons for believing that were redacted, but that's obviously a very serious crime on its face.
Appreciate that context. And as for the special master expected to be appointed in this case, Trump's team asked for that, right? So what does the former president hope to gain by that appointment? Could they, in fact, stop the intel examination altogether?
What he wants, it depends rather who you ask. If you ask people sympathetic to the former president, they would say he wants a review process in place outside of the strictures of the FBI. The FBI already has a so-called filter team to look at these issues of privilege, but Trump wants someone outside there to look at them. The more skeptical or critical view of Trump would hold that this is really a stalling procedure, that he wants to slow the investigation down, drag it on for as long as possible. That would obviously postpone any prospect of charges if, indeed, he will ultimately face such charges.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.